Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Hello? Anyone still out there? I bring news from the technological apocalypse in Ilma. We have survivors. Hopefully, you saw my updates on Twitter. If the podcast is ever out of commission again, that's the place to look. Probably should have posted on Patreon too, but, hindsight. Oh man, what a nightmare. First, it was a software problem, then a hardware problem. It might have been a mediumware problem somewhere in there. I don't know. I won't bore you with the details of my efforts to diagnose and remedy the issues, but I do apologize for being out of commission for so long. I had to wait for parts to be delivered. Fortunately, I took some of that time to phone bank to Georgia. I hope that you all can relate. Anyway, we've got a lot to catch up on. I'm sure I missed a few things, but I'm pretty amazed I condensed it as much as I did. That said, it's still longer than usual, obviously. Well, let's get cracking. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. Thank you all for your patience. As the vote count continues, Biden's lead is only growing, and he has an insurmountable lead in most of the remaining states, making a legitimate comeback impossible for Trump. Trump has still not conceded the race and continues to whine like a baby about imaginary fraud despite every court and elections official finding no evidence. Trump is also refusing to let Biden access key resources which are supposed to be made available to the president-elect to prepare them to take over. He's only becoming more unhinged, desperate, and childish, tweeting recently in all caps, quote, "The observers were not allowed into the counting rooms. They were. I won the election, got 71 million legal votes. Bad things happened which our observers were not allowed to see. Never happened before. Millions of mail-in ballots were sent to people who never asked for them." End quote. Basically what you'd expect from, a 5-year-old. Those observers he's talking about, by the way, as discussed before, are not legitimate poll watchers. They're just people who show up to protest, screaming stuff like, "Stop the steal," advocating for the count to be stopped. There are legitimate poll watchers in the room watching everything that happens, and they reported no issues. I think Mrs. Krasenstein on Twitter put it best when she responded with, quote, "Just concede like a man and move on," end quote. Well said. Republicans in the Senate are threatening to enter an unprecedented state of obstructionism by blocking all of Biden's cabinet appointments. That is, if they retain the Senate majority. If you thought they would turn over a new leaf of bipartisan responsible governance, think again. The only way any of the progress this country needs to survive gets done is with a Democratic majority in both houses right now. For his part, Biden's team have created a transition website to inform the public on the moves that he is taking and plans to take as president-elect, including 4 administration priorities: COVID-19, economic recovery, racial equity, and climate change. Moving down ballot, David Kim's race has sadly been called in favor of his incumbent opponent, Jimmy Gomez, by a spread of about 7%. For David to have come that close on a first run is an incredible achievement. It's unfortunate that Bernie never endorsed David, nor withdrew his previous endorsement from Gomez. It could well have made the difference. The result nationally has been that turnout was up on both sides. Biden won by over 5 million votes, but that is about 3%, meaning that Trumpism has not been crushed and will almost certainly be an ongoing cancer in the Republican Party. As Yang remarked, quote, "Trump established a path to power. Someone else will try to take the same road, guaranteed," end quote. Rather than gaining seats, the Democratic Party narrowly maintained its hold on the House, losing much of their majority. The Senate, of course, is still up for grabs. This was not the definitive turnaround that the country needed. The GOP will continue to reject democracy and the founding principles of America for power. Biden's win was not a resounding victory for liberty, but rather one last chance at righting the ship before we sail too deep into the storm of fascism and lunacy. That chance will rest largely on whether the Senate races in Georgia give the GOP the ability to obstruct all attempts at progress. Some good news on the COVID relief front. Pfizer said that early data from its COVID vaccine shows more than 90% efficacy, which is better than expected. It's not a definite test, though, since they aren't allowed to directly infect people, obviously. To be specific, of the trial participants who were evenly split among vaccine and placebo recipients, 90% of those who contracted COVID had received the placebo, and only 10% had received the vaccine. That could be slightly off due to the randomness of who catches it and who doesn't, and we're still many months away from widespread use, but we seem likely to dodge the bullet of a failed vaccine setting us back many more. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell reiterated his agreement with Yang on the economy, saying that the pandemic has accelerated existing trends in the economy and society, including the increasing use of technology, telework, and automation. There will be disruption that will hurt many in the short term, particularly low-paid workers, as well as those in jobs requiring face-to-face interactions, such as retail or restaurant workers. The post-pandemic economy is also at risk of being less productive. Women have been forced to quit their jobs due to childcare responsibilities during the crisis, and children are not getting the education they deserve. Generally speaking, inequality holds the economy back. Economists are hopeful that the next administration will manage to pass another stimulus bill to help workers and businesses. End paraphrase. TLDR, Yang was right about everything. A study recently concluded on housing the homeless in Los Angeles County. The findings suggest that housing assistance reduces crime, increases employment, and improves health, while not increasing reliance on welfare. A simple cost-benefit analysis implies that up to 80% of housing costs are offset by these potential benefits in the first 18 months alone. Which brings us to the UBI front. Congresswoman Omar has announced that she will be introducing a new guaranteed income bill in Congress. The details are unclear as to whether it would be truly universal or not, but she has been specifically supportive of universality in the recent past. She says it will be tailored to the new economic realities, presumably a variation on the preceding bill of $2,000 a month. South Africa has announced that they will be launching their basic income in a rural part of the country next year for citizens between the age of 18 and 59. More details to come. And Long Beach's City Council announced that they will be soon voting on a guaranteed income for 150 artists impacted by the pandemic. The head of one of the UBI pilots in Germany, Michael Bohmeyer, has finished writing his book, What Would You Do? How an Unconditional Basic Income Changes Us. It includes anecdotes from many recipients. Michael is a tech entrepreneur who immigrated to Germany from the US. He's been sending about $1,200 a month to 650 recipients. In the book, he describes the same results that we are now accustomed to hearing: improvements in almost every social metric and negligible effect on employment. It continues to beg the question, how much evidence will be enough? In the latest protest resignation under Trump, Richard Pilger has resigned as head of the Justice Department's Election Crimes Branch. He's quitting due to Barr breaking with the DOJ's standards for evidence in allowing investigations into completely specious allegations of election fraud, lending undue credibility to these attacks on democracy, all to humor Trump's tantrums. There have been a long line of such resignations in protest of Trump's incompetence and corruption. Unfortunately, they seem to have little effect in changing public opinion and ultimately just make way for far more corrupt officials to take their place. On the media front, Yang returned to the Breakfast Club podcast to give his thoughts on events since the last visit. Lots of positive feedback on that one. He also had Nina Turner on Yang Speaks, where they held high praise for one another. If you know any burners, it's a good one to direct them to. Joe Rogan heaped more praise onto Yang in a recent episode of his podcast and endorsed Yang for a 2024 run, calling him very wise and saying he would wholeheartedly support Andrew for president. I believe Yang also mentioned that he would get back in contact with Rogan about appearing on his show again. Today is the last day to grab some special Humanity Forward merchandise, so check out the store and make sure it's not something you need. Good time to kit out your crew for the holidays. The Facebook data lawsuit has now extended to users in Illinois who may be eligible for up to $400. Visit ddpforall.com or the link below to file a claim before November 23rd. If you put it off, you'll probably forget, so just do it now. Who can't use $400? If you can't use it, Georgia's Senate races sure can. Yang has made it clear in both words and action that he understands the importance of these runoff elections. He's tweeted recently that both he and Evelyn will be temporarily moving to Georgia to do all they can to secure a functioning Congress and dig us out of this hole. This also kicked off a disinformation campaign claiming Yang intends to register to vote in Georgia, which he has flatly denied. He's there to make the case for Ossoff and Warnock, to make the case for progress over decline, and to get out the vote. And he seems quite hyped about getting back on the trail, as do hundreds of Yang Gang activists, who have been responding enthusiastically that they will help from afar or even join him in relocating to Georgia. Just like the good old days, Zach's calling for another Yangapalooza. Yang's tweet also received incredible praise from celebrities and activists across the board, retweeted endlessly by huge names with compliments on his commitment to change. If you need more prompting to help with those Senate races, the two Republican candidates are showing they are both deep in the anti-democracy and anti-truth cult. They've called for their Republican Secretary of State to step down immediately after he and his staff reported no major signs of voter issues or fraud. This is yet another Trump loyalty purge. Not only do we need a Democratic majority in order to pass any of the necessary legislative reforms, we need to stop any more of these hive mind, anti-fact, anti-democracy cultists from infecting the government. If you want your donation to go straight to community organizers doing the boots on the ground work of getting out the vote, Yang linked a site of 16 vetted Democratic organizers in Georgia that you can help fund. His tweet on this also was shared and praised profusely. Stacey Abrams also has her own program to get out the vote called Fair Fight, which you can find in the links. If you want to do your phone banking or text banking with the gang, then the Georgia Yang Gang have you covered. Follow the link in the description to sign up, or you can also do it through Mobilize. This can be done from anywhere, and even a half hour a day can make all the difference. Most people don't know what's on the line. They need to know the power their vote will have, and you need to be the one who empowers them. Only together can we bring this country back from the brink and better than ever. Join us. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Thank Kim for running. Bookmark and share the Powell article, housing study, basic income pilots, Rogan's endorsement, and Nina's episode. Get your merch before it's gone. See if you're eligible for the Facebook payout. And join Yang and the gang in person or on the phones in Georgia. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way. And don't forget to Yang Daily.